The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
The 0-2, swing and a miss, strike three, blew it past it.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
And you got your honey mustard?
I love mustard.
With Ted Hicks and Lee Vowell.
Well, big deal. I am very professional.
On the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball Beer and Barbecue. Like us on Facebook, follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ. Read us on our blog site, BaseBallBeerBBQ.com. We will be joined in just a few moments by Max Rieper of SB Nation's Royals Review to discuss the World Series and the greatness that is the Kansas City Royals. I am Lee, as always, and Ted, of course, is here, and Todd, of course, is here. Todd, of course, is the new columnist at NGSC Sports, and then we'll get into his article that he wrote for NGSC Sports that was published yesterday, I believe, on the Metropolitans, but someone I cannot unmute. Let's try this again. So, Ted, hopefully you're there, and who else do we have to thank?
Testing, 1, 2.
You sound funny. You don't sound clear. You don't sound as clear as you normally do, Ted. I'll say that.
Oh, Katie. You can also hear us at I-95 Sports Network, Back Sports Pages, RF Sports, iTunes, our newest radio partner, Arena Sports Network. But most importantly, you can hear us in the UK at XRP Radio, what's up, Tiz? And on NGSC Sports that powers us on the iHeartRadio app. There's someone on Twitter that was going crazy this morning. I'll hand it over to Todd.
And I just have to ask you, friends, do you have computer problems? Do you want to put your foot through that screen? And if you already have, it's not too late. Call Computer Repair NC at CJ Computers NC 919-653-8496. It's fixed or it's free.
And just to catch everybody up on the score, Bayern Munich is up 2-0 over Stuttgart, 31 minutes in. So let's get straight into the baseball talk, shall we? Bernie Sanders, big baseball fan, was on the Democratic... No, I'm just kidding. He was, but he was very good last night. So anyway, World Series. The World Series was won by the Royals, 4-1.
No,
Ted, let's talk a little business while we're live. Are you using the regular microphone that you normally use?
Oh, you don't hear me?
I hear you, but you sound not like you're on a microphone.
Oh, really?
Just the way. Does he not sound that way, Todd?
When
he sounds
really? It sounded better, but yeah. Other than that, you sounded not quite Megatronic, maybe more like Bumblebee. No, Bumblebee.
Yeah, I mean,
you wait till the 37-minute mark.
Okay. Well, it's now 32 minutes and still 2-0 Bayern, if that's what you're referring to. So, anyway, the World Series, the Royals won over the Metropolitans 4-1. Let me...
I have to break in. I'm sorry, but last night I was at the bar with Brian Williams and Ben Carson, and they convinced me that the Mets beat the Royals.
I like the Brian Williams NBC because his daughter is very attractive. Was his daughter there? No, nothing.
Yeah, she was asking. She was asking for you.
No, I don't want to meet her. I'm just making an observation that she is a fairly good-looking human being. So,
she's tiger looking.
Actually, I'll say this. This show's already off the rails, so I'll say this. Brian Williams seems like he would be awesome to have a beer with, does he not? I mean, seriously, I know he's, made the thing up about, got in trouble for it and whatever, but doesn't he seem like the kind of guy you just like, it'd be kind of fun to hang out with? Because he's funny.
Sure, think of the stories you're going to hear. You're going to hear amazing stories that never happened. I mean,
amazing
why
stories.
Exactly. I think he's the executive producer for Steven Spielberg when they bring that back. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. He's got millions of them. No, you're right.
He would be. One time he told me he was on a plane and the wheel wouldn't go down, and then he drew a picture. So no, but So the Royals, Ted, I'll ask you this so we can get the pain out of the way. We're all here to share in your pain today. So the Royals obviously able to come back. It does in the 9th inning, 8th inning, whenever they want to come back, they seem to be. What makes them so able to effectively come back as they do?
They're just fearless. They're fearless.
Question real fast. I'm going to keep talking over you. I feel like Arnie in Entourage. So let me ask you this. Was it more the Royals obviously have shown they can come back at any point against anybody, but was it more the Royals or were the Mets just making really bad moves late in the game?
I'm waiting for you to talk over me.
I was waiting for you to talk.
No, come on. This off season, Los Mets will fix the bullpen and fix the shoddy defense. And I also take umbrage to the fact that Todd Vandenberg did not include me in any tweets about Los Mets. I'm upset.
And just for the record,
everyone, sir.
Just for the record. Just for the record, real fast. I'm going to keep talking over both of you guys, I guess. I have the louder microphone. So just for the record, Ted was the first person on the show to reference Harry Potter character Dolores Umbridge. Just want to make that.
I think it was part of it, of course, was the defense and other things we'll get into, but it was the Royals won. I mean, despite what happened, I don't think the Mets lost the series. The Royals won the series, and I think the reason they come back is confidence and contact. I mean, they just know they're going to win because they're insane, apparently. And so far this postseason, they were right. And other than later on, I mean, overall, I mean, look what they did to DeGrom: 3 swings and misses. I mean, they make contact, and when you make contact, nothing's going to happen if you strike out, except an out. But if you make contact, maybe it'll just go over and bloop into just past the second baseman, or maybe the second baseman will boot it a couple times. I mean, if you hit the ball, at least there's a chance something good can happen. If you strike out, nothing's going to happen. So I think those are the 2 reasons. And I really don't think the Mets lost it. I mean, they could have extended it, but I don't think they lost it. I think the Royals won, period.
So, Ted, are you happy with the contract extension that manager Terry Collins received from the Metropolitans? Also, real quick update, Bayern is up 3-0, 36 minutes in.
I'm okay with the contract extension. I just don't like the fact. I just don't like the fact that.
I believe Brian Williams just handed Ted a beer. Did you hear that? He was like, "Thanks, Brian."
I did.
I just don't like the fact that now with the new contract extension, Sandy Alderson is not able to eat breakfast, and he's going to be passing out on a regular basis now at press conferences. There's a shortage of money. Come on.
And in Sandy Alderson's case, a shortage of oxygen, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm not sure what happened with that.
You can't even afford that.
That's true.
Did
they
he
save money any way they can. Ask that again, Todd.
Ted, do you think Terry Collins blew the series with some of those choices they made?
Yes, but he also helped them get to the playoffs in the first place. So it's a wash. It's a wash.
Okay.
See, it's like I said with the Royals. I don't think he blew the series for them. I think he kind of helped prevent them from getting to Game 6 and maybe 7. But Royals were going to win that series. Period. I mean, it's like, should he have brought Harvey back for the 9th? It's like, I think he should have. But when he walked the guy, that's when he should have yanked him. I think the statement is like, well, if you just bring him in for one batter, would you bring him in for it all? It's like, well, because you're the manager and he didn't do his job. That's why.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's due to make the throw. It still works. So
yeah, but I don't think because he was not going to put him back in the 9th, and Harvey talked him into it. And as Terry Francona says, if you manage like a fan, you'll end up being one. So, and it's.
I didn't see that. Nice.
No, he wasn't. He said that before. He has said that about himself before. It just kind of fits with Terry Collins because he should not have.
Absolutely.
He made up his mind, and he shouldn't have had Harvey go back into the game because that's
he was
what
bullied.
he's paid to do. Well, not if he was
him.
bullied. He's just like, hey, this is my horse, and he's pitched very well, but he had his mind made up, and he shouldn't have been talked out of it. He should have had a stronger opinion of what he should have done, and I think maybe who knows what happens even if Harvey doesn't go back into the game, but more than likely it appears that it seems like the Mets may have won that game and just extended the series because they're probably still not going to win it, unfortunately, at this point. So the Mets next season, Todd, I'll ask you about this first because you actually wrote the also 4-0 Bayern with 39 minutes in. You wrote the article for NGSC Sports on Cespedes and Daniel Murphy. Tell us a little bit about the article and what you expect maybe the Mets to do next season if they're able to sign anybody at all.
Oh, first of all, I actually purchased the article on Craigslist. It cost me $2.87, and it was worth every penny. They're not going to spend the money just because, like Ted said, they can't spend the money. And despite the up to the World Series postseason heroics of Daniel Murphy, he's not a top flight second baseman. He's the worst defensive second baseman. I mean, he's the worst. It's like Ted said, they're gonna tighten up their defense. It's like, well, part of that process is saying adios to Mr. Murphy. And he had a terrible series, obviously, and those two errors really cost the Mets. But just like Ted said about Terry Collins, if it's not for Daniel Murphy, they're not in the World Series. So, it's a wash. He got him there, and other people on the team didn't pick up. One of the other guys who didn't pick up for Murphy is Mr. Cespedes. They both hit 150 in the World Series. And they both made some critical, it wasn't called an error for Cespedes. It was a mistake. The very first batted ball in the series, and that kind of set the tone. So it's weird about Cespedes, and you brought this up, Lee. It's like the guy's been in the league, in the majors, I should say, for 4 years. He's looking at his 5th team. And, he's got great tools. Although it's weird to me that he's not comfortable in right field because he reminds me, like I wrote, he reminds me of Vladimir Guerrero. I mean, not the power level, although he certainly flashes that at times, as we've seen. And why he is not comfortable in right is beyond me, but he isn't. So that makes him, he has a lot less utility than he should because he wants to play left. It's like, okay, you got incredible range and a great arm, but you want to be a left fielder. Great, whatever, dude. So thanks for not sucking up for the team, and maybe that's one reason why he keeps moving. I don't know. Certainly seems like a good guy, and he's so damn streaky, though. I think that's the other issue because you've got to be able to realize it's like, okay, he's going to be on fire. He's going to be hitting 350 and slugging 700, and then he'll be slugging 350 later on just because he's so imbalanced the way he plays. I mean, a lot of people are really streaky, so it's not a knock on him. It's just an observation. So, neither of those guys are coming back. I mean, if they were bargain basement players, like all of their pitching staff, of course they'd be back. But that costs too much money, and especially they need more consistency, like Ted said. So they're both going to be on the road. But I really hope the Mets fans appreciate, like Ted said, they got us to the series. You can't just dog them because, oh man, you choked, you cost us the series. It's like, if it wasn't for those dudes, hell, if it wasn't for Cespedes and what he kind of helped change, I mean, I don't know, did they win 82 games? I mean, seriously, man, we all know their offense was terrible before Cespedes showed up. So, hopefully they're very appreciative of what they did and the fact that they got them to the series. And they were not expected to be anything close to that. So on balance, I mean, Mets had an awesome year. I mean, of course it's disappointing when you lose the series, but hey, you're the second best team in baseball. No, did anybody expect that going in? No,
right.
I thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, Ted, what are your thoughts and what is it like in New York? What's the reaction to the Mets losing the World Series 4-1, and specifically as it happens with Cespedes and Daniel Murphy?
Well, today is, I think the high is about 67 degrees. It's a slight overcast.
That's warm.
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy here, the weather.
It's crazy.
But in regards to Cespedes, everyone came back to earth. Everyone came back to earth, and the fan, meaning myself and my two compadres on this line, we can tweet, say, pay that man. Oh, he's great. Give him a blank check. But when it comes down to it, there's a reason why he was on 4 different teams, because they knew the upside to it is, okay, when his contract is done, he does have all the different tools, and we're not going to be able to pay him because we see something else. There's another piece that comes with it. So,
right.
I mean, climbing is fun because in my eyes and the guys that I always razz in the mailroom, the Mets have kind of taken over New York. They've taken that back page away from the Yankees.
Sweet.
People aren't talking about the Yankees. They're talking about the Mets and what the Mets are going to do. And I tell you, if Mr. Steinbrenner was still alive, there'd be no way he would have it. There'd be a $300 million payroll with the Yankees next season, just to do it. But the Mets are going to do it. Defense, pitching, making smart moves. The fact of the matter is, I think we have probably one of the most accomplished general managers in the league, and he's going to spend that money smartly because there's a limited amount. The big question is, we don't know what the amount is. Last season's amount was $99, $100 million. With all these different guys coming off the payroll, what's the new number going to be? It's already at 90 with everyone that you have under contract, and that's with Matt Harvey filing for arbitration and getting an increase from $600K to $4 million. So look for them to make smart moves. Everyone kind of knew the Mets overachieved, and the people are just proud to wear the blue and orange.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, that's really good to hear because, you don't want to, we made it to the World Series and we kind of give up on next year. Yeah, that's awesome. We will talk a little bit more about free agency and specific free agents after we talk to Max Rieper, and he'll be on in just a couple of minutes to talk more World Series. But, a couple of quick notes. Dusty Baker hired as the Nationals manager, so we don't have to go a year without there being an African-American manager in Major League Baseball. Ted, your thoughts on Baker being hired by the Nationals?
Baker is just too good to be sitting with the team on TBS, with the studio team on TBS. He's exactly what the Washington Nationals need. They need someone that has that, veteran leadership and has that experience that can take these young stars and kind of mold them and get them to where they need to be. I mean, everyone expected the Nationals to win the division last season, and they gave it to the Mets. That's right, they gave the division to the Mets. And that's, there's going to be high expectations for Dusty. As for being African American in the league, I mean, do we want to see more? We want to see more based on level of experience, not based on just because. We don't want the situations to kind of be like, and I'm sorry, I'm going off the rails here, kind of like the NFL with the Fritz Pollard Alliance. You don't want an African-American candidate just thrown in there just to be interviewed. So, I mean, it's great for Dusty. It's great for I think it's great for baseball because he's a great baseball mind. Rather than say, it's great for it's great for the African Americans.
Yeah, and I that's a good point. I do want to say and I know you don't mean it this way, but if somebody were to make that argument, it's still kind of unfair. And I agree. I think people should be hired based on merit. But if an African American has to have the experience, and you're seeing Osmus, Matheny, these guys didn't have any experience, and they just got hired, right away. It helps with their catchers, I know, but it's still. I think Julio Franco. He's out there working in Japan. He's done a lot of coaching. He'd be a good. But why is nobody interviewing him? First of all, he'd be fantastic. And then Ozzie Guillen. I mean, he's Hispanic, but he is of darker skin. It would be interesting to have him back because he's proved that he's a good Major League Baseball manager when given players to work with.
Yeah, I think that's a crime. Ozzie Guillen's not back in the game. It's in his mouth is the reason he isn't. But it's like live with it. I mean, do you want to win?
Agreed.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Agreed.
Well, we are now going to welcome Max Rieper to the show. Max is editor-in-chief at SB Nation's Royals Review. Max has been with us several times now, and it's always a pleasure to discuss baseball with him. Max, thanks again for joining us, and congratulations to your Royals.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot better to be on here talking about a world champion than the runner-up for sure. Todd.
A stab at you. Max, first I want to say is great name. I mean, you need to be a Marvel villain in the Marvel universe. It's like they need to light up your name. And Max Rieper sounds awesome. Anyway, so on to what we're really talking about, because a lot was made of the Royals. They only whiffed 3 times against DeGrom. And as the series progressed, they became a little more human, but their approach still worked so well in the series. So the Mets are just flamethrowers. Were they just tailor-made for the fall?
Yeah, I think the Royals kind of stumbled on an effective formula for October baseball, just having that high-contact approach. I mean, it's interesting. We saw really a sharp contrast in how the Mets did against the Cubs versus how they did against the Royals. The Cubs hitters, they're high-risk, high-reward guys. Either they hit home runs or they strike out. And that works really well in the regular season when you're facing a lot of mediocre and lousy pitchers. But, of course, in October, you're facing some of the best pitchers in baseball, like the Mets have. And I think that approach sometimes will lend yourself to some slumps, like we saw with the Cubs. And they got swept in 4 games and really didn't look very effective at all against those Mets pitchers. The Royals take a much different approach. It's less high risk, lower risk, low reward. So they're not going to hit the ball at the ballpark and hurt you that way. But they're also not going to strike out much. And I think in October, when you're facing the best pitchers, I mean, their game hasn't really changed. The Cubs kind of got thrown out of their game, whereas the Royals are still kind of playing their same game that won them 95 games this year. That kind of put the ball in play. The Mets, they still got some of their strikeouts. I mean, they're very good pitchers. But the Royals were able to get enough contact on the ball to kind of make things happen. And we saw the Mets infield defense was it's been a liability kind of all year, and it really came to fruition in October. We saw Murphy with a couple big errors, and that infield play with Duda with the throw at home that really cost them as well. So when you put the ball in play, things can happen, and I think the Royals really took that to heart. That's kind of their secret to success all season, and I think in October that kind of approach can kind of mitigate some of the facing some of the better pitchers in the league, and you still got to credit those Mets pitchers. They pitched great. Harvey kind of bounced back from an okay performance in Game 1, but I think not as well as he would have liked to have done, and just gave him a great performance in Game 5, and unfortunately it didn't work out for him at the end. But they've got some talented young pitchers in New York. I think they're going to be contenders for several years. But for this postseason, I think the Royals were kind of the exact team that could really face that kind of challenge effectively, and it would have won the World Series.
And you just made Ted happy by saying they'll be there for years. And you mentioned Duda's throw, which to me that's like the non-play of the series is that throw to 6 feet away from home. If he does his job, obviously they're going back to Kansas City. In retrospect, do you think that was a smart play by Hosmer? I mean, 9 times out of 10, he's out. He's easily out. Was that still a smart play by him?
Well, yeah, during the play, I was kind of yelling at my TV screen, no, yes, like. It's a smart play if it works out, right? But I've seen some postmortems since then, and there's been a little bit of debate how smart of a play that was. The Royals have said that they kind of knew that Duda was not an effective thrower and that he would be a little bit of a liability out there. I'm a little dubious of that. I mean, I know Duda's not the best. He's not a Gold Glover or anything, but he doesn't have throwing problems that I know about. His problem has been with the glove. So I'm a little skeptical of that claim by the Royals. But I've seen some other analysis by people saying that, it's not as easy of a play as you might think. You still have to get a good throw, a good tag, or a good catch and a good tag. I don't know. I've seen replays, and it looked like he would have been out by a couple feet. And these are major leaguers. You know, they throw the ball and catch the ball pretty well and make tags. So I think he probably would have been out. I don't think it's particularly a smart play, but like I said, the Royals are the kind of team that push the issue, that make things happen. They knew the infield defense was a liability for the Mets, and they took advantage of it. And, sometimes aggressiveness pays off, and, especially when you're talking about where one play can make the difference in a game. I think the Royals, that's just their game, and they're not going to be able to turn that switch off. So it's kind of in their head that, anytime they can take an extra base, they will. So you give credit to Eric Hosmer because it worked, but I don't know if it's a play that you want to replicate all the time. I think I saw in the Arizona Fall League the exact same play happened yesterday, and the guy was out by 3 feet. So maybe not everyone. I don't know if every kid in America should be trying that play at home.
Max, how you doing? This is Ted from New York. Congrats on the Royals.
Thank you.
I'm not a bitter Mets fan, but yes, I am. I got to tell you, Hosmer's play was just typical of the Royals' philosophy. I'm going to say not for the series, for the season, of the little of what I've seen from him. He kind of pressed the other team until they make a mistake, and I think they did their homework on Duda, and his kind of lack of having an arm and playing defense. But the counter for that style is obvious. You just don't make mistakes. So do you think this will lead to more teams favoring defense a bit more than offense? Kind of case in point, the great Daniel Murphy's glove versus his bat. Right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Every time we have a new world champion that's kind of plays a different style of game, there is a lot of copycat around the league, and I think maybe sometimes we overblow the recipe for success a little too much because, like you say, Carlos Correa, if he fields a play successfully in ALDS, the Royals are going home. I mean, they're not even in the World Series. We're not even talking about them. So, things could have turned out really differently, and we wouldn't be talking about the success of this formula the Royals have stumbled upon. But I would expect, they've been for the last 3 years, they've had the best record in the American League. That's combined. So that's not something to dismiss. They've done it through great defense, a great bullpen, and frankly some punch and Judy hitters. So I think that's a recipe that I think some teams are going to feel like they can replicate, especially if they play in bigger ballparks where it's harder to hit home runs. And so, it'll be interesting to see how teams go about pursuing defense because I think the Royals went after defense, number one, because they have a big ballpark, but number two, because it was an asset that's not particularly overvalued in the market the way home runs or on-base percentages. Now that the Royals have kind of, shown the blueprint for having a great defense in a championship team, defense may not be undervalued anymore. We may be, it'll be interesting to see what guys like Alex Gordon and Jason Hayward get on the free agent market, guys who are pretty good bats, but they're really known for their glove, and that's where a lot of their value comes from. So, it'll be, it's a recipe that I'm not sure can be replicated in a lot of places. I think Kansas City's kind of unique with their ballpark, and they, to be honest, like you said, they were a little bit lucky. I mean, we just had an article this week on our site about the 10 lucky breaks the Royals needed to win a championship, which, any team that wins a championship needs some breaks along the way. So it's not like the Royals are unique there, but, definitely they had some, the Carlos Correa era, the ALDS, the Jose Bautista drop in the ALCS versus Toronto. They had some lucky breaks against the Mets. Daniel Murphy makes a couple big errors. The Duda throw. I mean, there's a whole host of breaks that the Royals caught that kind of paved the way for their championship that, another team may not be able to get even if they have a great defense. So, it'll be interesting to see the copycats and what other teams come up with to kind of replicate that performance.
Max, I will say, after going through a long, stressful season, writing and watching and being I like to say for us guys on here, we're kind of like super fans because we support our teams. The coup de grace is the ticker tape parade, and apparently the entire population of both Missouri and Kansas were at the parade. You got to tell us, how was it? How was that overall experience at the parade?
It was pretty overwhelming. We went down there for a little bit. It was just after a while. I have young children, so it became a little too overwhelming for us. But and, you know, what's really cool about sports, you know, it's just a game, and you know, it's not something we should take too seriously. But there are times when it kind of transcends, you know, the game, and it means something more to people. And you know, for a city like Kansas City, you know, we're a smaller market. We only have 2 big professional sports teams, neither of which has had much success at all in the last 30 years. To have something the whole city can kind of rally around, and this is kind of, the championship came at the time when we've kind of revitalized our downtown area, and we've had a lot of good publicity about, you know, our art scene and restaurant scene coming back. So it was kind of nice to see the city rally and get behind this team, and that was the last 2 years. There's been a lot of cool stories about people coming together, and I think there was a huge fan that had cancer, terminal cancer, and fans raised, you know, thousands of dollars for his family. He ended up surviving for another year. There's a fan that came, a Royals fan in Korea, of all places, who had wanted to see the team for 7 years and never had vacation time, and he came out to Kansas City, and the whole city rolled out the red carpet for him, and it was really cool to see everyone do that. So there's a lot of neat stories like that. The Zobrist family, when the Royals acquired Ben Zobrist, man, the city just kind of embraced him like he was one of our own, and he's become like the most popular man in Kansas City now. So, yeah, it's really cool when sports kind of transcends that. I know New York has had a lot of moments like that, especially after like 9/11, when baseball kind of was able to allow us to get back to normal, and so, you know, it's really cool to have moments like that where the city can kind of come together, and it shows just, you know, what good that sports can do in our lives.
And again, we're talking to Max Rieper, editor-in-chief at SB Nation's Royals Review. Max, I'll ask you this. You talked about people coming together to watch the parade. Is it true that you actually hosted someone on your couch from Canada? And if so, is that an open invitation for anybody going to see a Royals game from anywhere in the country?
Yeah, one of our writers is from Toronto, which is interesting. He just kind of grew up a Royals fan, oddly enough, and he went to the ALCS game up in Toronto, but he wanted to come down for the rally, and I said, yeah, if you need a place to stay, you can crash on our couch, that's fine. He drove overnight for 15 hours and showed up on my doorstep the next morning, and he went to the rally, and he had a blast. He loved Kansas City. He'd only been here like once before, and he had a great time, and it helps when you have 800,000 of your closest friends that celebrate the Royals championship. But that was something else, and we also got to mention Johnny Gomes' speech. Johnny Gomes, who had all of 30 at bats with the Royals, kind of took center stage and became the MC of the celebration rally. I would have totally forgot he was on the team, but now that he gave the speech that he did, where he kind of called out all the non-awards, all the awards the Royals won't win, and how we beat all those teams that have the awards. I think he's going to be like the most memorable guy from that rally, even though he wasn't even on the postseason roster. So it was a very cool rally. I think the guys had a good time, and I think all of Kansas City had a blast for sure.
It sure looked fun. So, you know, it's as you mentioned, the Royals are such a good team. I mean, it's not just a few players. I'm a Dodgers fan. We have very good players, but we're not a good team. And therefore, it was kind of hard to say who was going to be the MVP of the series, World Series. Would you have chosen someone other than Perez? And speaking of Perez, how long do you think they keep him at catcher? You know, they want to save his knees, as catchers are more apt to do, to move to first base. Do you think that's something that's going to happen in the near future, or do they not think about that at all?
Well, as far as the MVP, I think there was like 4 or 5 guys you could have named MVP, and I think no one would have batted an eye. I think for me it came down to Salvador Perez and Ben Zobrist. I think Zobrist had a number of really big hits. I think he's tied or set the record for most extra base hits in a series, or in a postseason maybe. And then Salvi, I think, had the second or tops the best OPS in the World Series for all the Royals, and he had the game, what ended up being the game-winning hit in Game 5, and was great behind the plate. So I'm comfortable giving it to Salvi. Although, like I said, you could have given it to Zobrist, you could have given it to Gordon. I think you could have given it to Wade Davis. You can even make a case for Hosmer because of his dash and some of the key hits he had. As far as Salvador Perez behind the plate, he's only 25, which is kind of crazy because he's already been in the league for 3 or 4 years now, and they've got him signed to this ridiculously cheap long-term deal. I think they'll keep him back behind the plate as long as they can. I think for a number of reasons. I think he's the kind of the field general out there when he's behind the plate. He's great at handling the pitchers. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a Gold Glover for 3-time Gold Glove winner, probably won his 4th this year. So I think if you move him out from behind the plate, you're going to lose a lot of his value because he's not that great of a hitter. He's got some good pop, but he can't draw walks, and he doesn't hit by an average or anything like that. So, maybe down the line, in his 30s, I can see him maybe playing third base or first base. But I think that, by that time, he probably, I don't know how long he's going to be in Kansas City. So it'll be an interesting decision they have to make when he gets there. But I think for now, for the next, 4 or 5 years, he'll be behind the plate.
Gotcha. Well, Alex Gordon received one of those $15.8 million offers that it seemed like every player in Major League Baseball got yesterday to stay with the team, or they give up whoever signs him, I think, gives up a first-round draft pick. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's how it works.
Right.
Are both sides interested in Gordon returning, and also Zobrist? I think he has to return now that he's named his child, right? Royal, isn't that the child's name?
Yeah, that was really interesting, and like I said, he's been embraced by this city, and he seems to love it here. It ultimately comes down to money, but I know that Zobrist is a guy the Royals have pursued for a long time. They really like his game, they like his versatility. He's a guy that really fits into the top of their lineup and gives them options on the field, which for a smaller market team, it's nice to have a guy that can kind of fill lots of different spots. So, I think he's looking at probably a 3 or 4 year deal, which I think the Royals could probably do. It'd probably be $12 to $15 million per year, but I think that probably fits within their budget, especially considering they just had a record attendance figures this year. But they get a little antsy when it comes to longer-term deals than that. They've only done 2 5-year contracts in their franchise history, and both of those ended up with the player being hurt the final year or two. So it was Mike Sweeney and Gil Mesh. So I think there's a strong reluctance to do a 5-year deal, and I think it's going to take a 5-year deal to get Alex Gordon to come back to Kansas City. So both sides are willing to do a deal, but it's going to be, I think, really up to the Royals how many years they want to commit to Alex Gordon, and what does their long-term payroll look like? Because they have a lot of these guys that are on the team now. They got them for the next 2 years, and that's it. I mean, virtually the entire team is eligible for free agency after the 2017 season. So you either have to start locking these guys up to long-term deals, or you have to start producing more young talent. So I don't know what their long-term plan is. If it is locking these guys up to long-term deals, then maybe you don't have enough money to sign Alex Gordon to a 5-year deal. If it's to say, okay, Alex Gordon's going to be our centerpiece for the next wave of young talent that comes up, then maybe you do sign him to a long-term deal and build around him. But I don't know if they see him as a build-around guy. So, like I said, with his defense being much of his value, it'll be interesting to see what he gets in the open market. I mean, I'm hearing $80 to $100 million in a 5-year deal is kind of the ballpark what he should expect. So it'll be interesting to see what the Royals do. They have some options in the outfield if he leaves with Gerard Dyson and Paulo Orlando, but those aren't really attractive options. Those are kind of more role players, bench players. They could go out in the free agency and try to replace him out there, or they could try to use Ben Zobrist as the left fielder like they did when he was hurt, when Gordon was hurt, and use Zobrist to fill in out there until somebody else comes up from the minors. So the whole city of Kansas City is kind of waiting with bated breath what happens to Alex Gordon, because he's a very popular player. He's kind of a local Midwestern kid from Nebraska. So I think everyone wants to see him back. It just really comes down to the money.
Hey, Max, this is Todd again. Lee has been gracious enough to allow me to speak, which is very rare on the show. Man, you are an amazing guest. What a blast to have you on. Where else can our thousands and millions of listeners in the UK alone, where can they find you on the interwebs?
We are at royalsreview.com. It's part of the SB Nation network of blogs. You can find all the latest news and analysis on the Kansas City Royals. And we're also on Twitter and Facebook as well. Twitter is at Royals Review. So, check us out sometime if you're interested in the Royals or just any kind of humorous takes on baseball.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Max, for being on. And, of course, we're going to ask you to be on about 500 more times over the next few years. So I appreciate you being on. Thank you.
Yeah, don't forget the Royals and the Mets. They play opening day next year, so we may have to get together just before that.
Hey, let me ask you this real fast. If that's opening day, how do you feel about intra-league play being the first game of the season?
You know, it kind of threw me for a loop when I heard those teams are playing each other. But now that it's the rematch of the World Series, I mean, it's kind of exciting to see those two teams match up again. So I don't know. It's different, and it's going to take some getting used to. But it'll be fun this year, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks, Max, for being on. Enjoy your Saturday, and have a great week.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
And again, that was Max Rieper, Editor-in-Chief of Royals Review. I will now unmute Ted. Hopefully I will. Ted, hopefully you're still there. So, we have a few minutes left in the show. And well, I do want to talk free agency. Ted doesn't, obviously. He's not responding. But it was interesting that Ted, I think, is having some tech issues today. So, but it was interesting. Keith Law put out his top 50, or his top, 750 free agents, because everybody's a free agent this year. It's for people who don't follow baseball. Everybody's a free agent this year, as it turns out. I'm making that up. Please don't look that up. So, but he starts, of course, with echo. He starts, of course, with Jason Hayward is his number one player. Which, I mean, Jason Hayward's 26 years old. Phenomenal WAR. This year it was 6.5. Not great power numbers, only 13 home runs. Not that you expect him to ever hit a lot of home runs at this point, because he hasn't. But, Ted, I'll start with you. What's your take on Jason Hayward being the top-ranked free agent, according to Keith Law? I mean, do you agree that he could be number one, or should there be somebody else who's number one?
Can I jump in for a second? Does he mean position player or overall?
No. Zach Greinke is number two. So he's got, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Ted.
That doesn't want to talk. Okay, this is what Keith Law.
Ted's hitting the Corona hard, baby.
It is. This is what Keith Law said about Jason Hayward. This is why he has him number one. Hayward has already produced 31.1 WAR in his career. Of course, he's 26, the 31st best total for any position player through his age 25 season in Major League history. He's between Luke Gehrig and Roberto Alomar. But I'd argue that he hasn't even reached his full potential yet. The only issue I have with Keith Law, who knows a lot more about baseball than I do, but the only issue I would have with that is we keep saying the same thing. Jason Hayward's an excellent player. He's a great corner outfielder. He puts up, numbers that produce a big WAR. He's one of those kind of players where he's not going to hit 50 home runs, but his WAR is still going to be much better than most every other player. But we keep saying every year he just hasn't reached his potential. I mean, maybe this is he's 26. Maybe this is his potential. Maybe he's reached it. He's still a good player, but maybe he's reached it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's reached his potential, and probably what everyone is looking at is like, the magical age 27 player, which it happens, but superstars, and he's not a superstar, but superstars, guys like, I don't know, Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, guys like that, no one's questioning, are they going to reach their potential when they're 26? I mean, they've been doing it since they're 22. So he's reached his potential, and his potential is damn good. I mean, as a position player, I think he probably is the best free agent out there. But overall, I don't know. Which would you rather have on your team, Lee? Would you rather and ignore the fact that you already have like 87 outfielders? Would you rather have Hayward, or would you rather keep Greinke? I mean,
I don't see, but that goes back. You could make that argument about the MVP. Who's more valuable? Should you have a pitcher as MVP?
Yeah, and I realize that, but I mean, as far as that issue goes, you're not talking. I mean, Hayward is not the Greinke of outfielders. You're not talking about. You're not talking about a guy who is absolutely the best power numbers and the best defense. This year, which how Greinke would equate, and over the career, absolutely in that top realm. I mean, he's not that guy. I mean, would I love to have him on my team? Hell yes. Tigers getting, God, that would be fantastic, because he's a terrific player, but he's not the equivalent of Greinke. I mean, Granted, he's only in, a set number of games, but he changes every one of those games he's in a lot more than Hayward does.
Yeah, but maybe he's at the age now where it's, he's 32. And so I guess if the Dodgers are going to spend the money, they could go out and sign Jordan Zimmerman because they're going to spend money. I would be shocked if they didn't spend any money.
Of course.
But I'd be totally okay with them getting Hayward. I think Ted's back with us. I think Ted was just taking a break because you know what Ted was thinking for a while after we were asking questions after Max left? He was thinking, they had that motherfucking Royals fan on. That's what he was thinking. Ted, your thoughts on Jason Hayward? According to Keith Law, Jason Hayward being the number 1 ranked free agent. And I don't know if anybody can hear me. I will just keep talking. So, I will keep talking. So, according to Keith Law, of course, the other ranked free agents that he has are Zach Greinke, and he has at number 2, and Greinke, again, is a free agent. He has Cespedes, actually, at number 5, and Dexter Fowler is number 8. So, actually, we're going to end the show, and we're going to pick up more free agent talk next time we are on, which will be, of course, next Saturday. And, in that point, we will actually talk a lot more free agency. We'll kind of go from there. We'll actually rank our own free agents I want us to do and talk a little bit about what our predictions are of who goes where. So that's our show. Thanks for listening.
The fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby, with Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. The old-time